Joining us now, the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide ahead of their Final Four matchup tomorrow against UConn, Chris Stewart. Chris, we were talking before we got on air here, man. Like, are you sleeping at all before this Final Four matchup before you're calling it?
I am a little bit. I actually, between the time zone changes and the schedule of everything and all the stuff and part of it, the excitement, yeah, worn out. But I don't know if I'll sleep a whole lot between now and tip off on Saturday night.
I mean, it's just been an incredible run, and for y'all to be here, I know it's fired up everybody, I'm sure, in Tuscaloosa. For you personally, TBS aired a phenomenal feature about just the different health challenges you've overcome from 2018 to more recently in 2020. How are you feeling overall right now physically?
Feel fantastic. I'm worn out. That has nothing to do with the health concerns. It's just everything that's gone on. But from a true health standpoint, beyond blessed that I'm not only in the position that I'm in to broadcast this amazing run by this team, but just that I'm here. Period. The story documented extremely well. The stroke in 2008, as you pointed out, and then 16 months later, going through a bypass and an infection that almost killed me as well. So I'm the word blessed gets used a lot. I'm just not smart enough to use one beyond that. It's been amazing, and I'm so grateful for it. People have been unreal with their kindness, and just thankful that God graced me with the uh, restoration of my health, and that I'm able to be around for my family and and be a part of things on this side right now. It's been an unbelievable platform to share about His grace and His mercy, and I'm thankful I've been given that.
And I mean, your story has clearly been inspirational to a number of people, but also within the Alabama basketball team. What does it feel like for you hearing guys on the team say, hey, we got to go win this one for Chris and kind of rally around you?
Uh, Floored me. Floored me. It was a very kind gesture. I hope they win it for themselves. They're the ones that have put the work in. But that team that I was with, what I missed November and December basketball season, all of the football season that year, and then basketball November and December. But I was grateful that I could come back in January and started on January 4th of 2020 doing basketball games. With the first one was in Florida, and guys were phenomenal to me. Team was great. Nate Oates in his first year, fantastic. But this group of guys were in high school or middle school when that happened, so they don't know. But when they heard the story, they saw it on CBS digital platform first, and then later on, they told me they sent the text around, or they sent that link around the team chat that they have just for the players, and made an unbelievable gesture of adding me to the list of reasons that they wanted to win. And then for them to think of it and share it with me post game was something I'll never forget.
I mean, from the personal journey to the way that this team sort of had a journey throughout the course of this season, when you sit down to call that game tomorrow, the Final Four, it's Bama, it's UConn, what are the emotions you're going to be feeling?
I don't know if I can even answer that, because I know that the end of the last game, and to be able to say Alabama's going to the Final Four, for that matter, the win over North Carolina that puts you in the Elite Eight was emotional. But to get to broadcast that win and actually say the words to Alabama fans that their team is going to the Final Four, when you've had so many great teams. I mean, a lot of people tend to forget um, it's Kentucky and everybody else when you're talking history within the Southeastern Conference. And there are several other programs that caught lightning in a bottle and had great seasons and got to a Final Four before Alabama did. There are teams that have won national championships besides Kentucky. So it's not as if the conference doesn't have a championship pedigree and a Final Four pedigree, but Alabama hasn't had that. However, Alabama's got more wins outside of Kentucky. Nobody has more SEC wins historically than does Alabama. And there have been two glaring holes in the resume from a basketball standpoint: a Final Four and a national championship. Well, the Final Four is now filled in, and we're 2 wins from the other. So, from a historic standpoint, it's great to have that done, that piece of the puzzle filled in. And I'm just so honored that I've had the privilege to see some great moments and broadcast them in 22 years of doing this. But the most historic NCAA tournament run in program history is one that hopefully is still going on.
And Chris, that's one of the things that I think I speak for everybody when I say this. Like, if you've heard Chris Stewart call a game, there is unbridled joy. There is excitement to the nth degree. Like, it doesn't matter if it's an Elite Eight game. It doesn't matter if it's a regular season football game. Where does that kind of joy and excitement and just emotion for what you're doing come from?
I've been a fan of Alabama since my childhood. My dad used to be in charge of ushers in the north end zone at Legion Field when that was one of two home stadiums for the Crimson Tide. And Dad always brought me a game program. The team used to literally drive where I lived in Fairfield, which is just west of Birmingham. Back in the old days, they would actually drive in front of my house when I was very, very small on their way to Legion Field for ball games. And that was just, it was about Alabama in my house. And so a fan of the Crimson Tide, and to now get an opportunity to broadcast games. And it's a different broadcast. I've done neutral broadcast as recently as the SEC tournament. Got to do one for the SEC radio network. I want to say that it was, oh man, they run together. I can't even remember now who I called, but it was two teams that neither of which was Alabama. Tim Thompson, who does the Vandy games, was my color analyst. It's something cool that Learfield does, which they own the rights, and they pair a play-by-play guy from one school and a color guy from another one, and we get to do a game together. And we don't care who wins, and it's fun to just broadcast the game, and I enjoy that. But when I'm doing an Alabama game, I used to joke that literally the way my contract was set up, the outcome affects my income. More games we win, more games I get to call, more money I make for my family. So that was there's passion involved because you care about the team, but professionally and personally, there's something at stake there. And I've never been told that I have to be upbeat and happy when Bama loses, and I've never been told I can't be excited when they win. So I think part of what has resonated with Bama fans over the years is that I care as much as they do because I'm one of them. And I've got a responsibility to broadcast the game in a professional manner, and I hope I do that so that if someone who's a fan of another school happens to be tuning in, they're going to know the score, they're going to know the time, they're going to know the key elements of the broadcast. But they'll figure out pretty soon this is a guy broadcasting for Alabama if they tune in.
And some words that Alabama fans have become pretty quickly major fans of your tagline, "Let's get out of here." What are the origin stories of that? Was that in the back pocket, or where did that come from?
That's crazy that's happened because I'm not one to script things. I could probably count on one hand the number of times I have written something that I want to use at the end of the game to specifically say. That's just, I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong. That's just never been my style. To me, it's been part of the challenge, part of the game, if you will, of saying what you feel in the moment, in addition to saying what you see as it happens. So there are a lot of guys that I know that are much more successful than I that I like to have something written and in the hip pocket to say, and I rarely do that. But the "let's get out of here" goes back to the emotion thing. I don't recall ever saying it before the Texas A&M game in football in Tuscaloosa 2 years ago. I may have said it a couple of times, but the one that I remember and the one that stood out was the game in Tuscaloosa after Jimbo and Coach Saban had their little conversation in the summer, and there was a lot of build up to that game, and Bama fans and myself included hoped that the Tide would beat the Aggies by 1,000 that day and then go for two with no time left on the clock. Didn't happen that way. Texas A&M played a great game, and it's literally coming down to the last play. And Bama, it's an incomplete pass. It's a walk-off win, and the emotion of surviving that and winning it. And we also started doing Facebook Live in the last few years. A guy named Ethan Carabin manages that for us and does a fantastic job on the football broadcast in our home basketball games. And they put that back out where I didn't even know I did it, but you can see me. It's basically saying, let's get out of here. Like we stole something. Let's go. Just hurry before they look this over again. And that's where it came from. And people started saying that to me. And there was the game the next year, this past season, we're in College Station, and we don't win it exactly on a walk-off, but it's very similar. And almost for fun, I said, let's get out of here again. And my boss comes up to me, Jim Carabin, and says, we're going to have to make T-shirts now. And I just laughed. I said, yeah, right. He goes, no, I'm serious. We're doing T-shirts. And the next thing I know, they've got a shirt or a design for me to look at. I said, oh, it looks great. And I just shared it with my daughter, who just recently graduated from Alabama about a year ago. And I said, hey, what do you think? She's not even a designer, but, like everybody that age, they fool around with stuff on the computer. And she goes, I really like that. She goes, but I got an idea. I said, okay. So she sends it to me, and I just thought it was so cool. It was headset with radio airwaves basically running through it or in the background, whatever. And the words in bold with quote, let's get out of here. And I thought that's pretty cool. And so I just sent it to my boss and to J&J Apparel, who's doing that for us. And they said, that's awesome. You want to use it? I went, yeah, I do. So it's cool that they wanted to do a T-shirt, period. But why it has so much meaning to me is my daughter actually designed the shirt. So to be honest, I almost feel I try never to force anything because I don't want to be that guy. But there are people that have said it to me so much that I almost feel obligated. And the 4 wins we've had, I've only used it twice. I used it after the Grand Canyon game because we were getting out of Spokane and going to LA. And I used it after the win against Clemson because we were getting out of here and we're going to the Final Four. So hopefully, we even incorporated it. Tom Stipe is amazing. He's our producer, and he has written these legendary opens and scene setters that Eli read for years on the Alabama broadcast for football and basketball, and the ones that we do in the postseason. Tom writes them, and he's a great writer. Eli had the same opportunity, and I do this. We kind of tweak what Tom writes a little bit and maybe put our own little stamp on it. But Tom put in something towards the end about let's get out of here. And then the line, but I may not want to because this has been so much fun. So it's not anything I ever planned, but I'm just glad there's something that resonates with the Bama fan base and has become kind of fun.
Well, I know Alabama fans are hoping that they hear that a lot during the fall when it comes to the football season, and you're going to be the voice of that as well. I know you found out earlier this year that, hey, you are going to be full-time calling the Alabama football games. Describe the emotion when you found out, like, hey, you're going to be the voice every Saturday afternoon.
It's definitely emotional. I've already said I grew up in this state. I got the privilege of getting to know John Forney late in his life, and he was wonderful. In fact, when, I was 24 years old, 23 years old, he was kind enough to listen to a cassette tape of mine, a demo tape, and give me feedback on the broadcast, on my work, and was so kind about it, and stayed in touch and in contact with him, and just very gracious. And I'm so thankful that I got to know him last few years of his life. Paul Kennedy was fantastic, still is a tremendous broadcaster. Did Alabama games for, I think, 4 seasons for Alabama football, and um, some great calls during a time when Alabama didn't win a championship, but won some big games, and he had just really fantastic calls. That's the guy that I listened in my teen years, and thought so much of. And then Eli, of course, I've heard almost my whole life. He started doing hockey in Birmingham in 1980 or 81, I believe. And I've, listened to him do old Birmingham Bulls games and then the Barons baseball team. He was a sportscaster in Birmingham on what was then the ABC affiliate before he got the Alabama play-by-play job. To then get to work with him for the last 20 plus years in some capacity or another for the network. Um, it's Alabama, which makes it meaningful enough. But to have known each of the 3 men that have held that job in my lifetime and understanding the standard that they set and the responsibility that I have, yes, to Bama fans to uphold a standard, but to each of them because of who they are and what they did and what the job meant to them and who they mean or what they mean to me. Yeah, it's a big responsibility, but it's one I am so blessed to have.
And it's an exciting time right now to be the voice of Alabama football with kind of a changing of the guard with Nick Saban's retirement and now Kalen DeBoer coming into the fold, being the new head coach. I know it's early, but have you had any interactions with Coach DeBoer, any early impressions of him in Tuscaloosa?
I haven't spent more than 2 minutes talking directly with him. I met him at the coronation, as I call it, the day that he was introduced as the head coach and became king of Alabama football. 30-second conversation. Greg Byrne introduces me to him just before we go upstairs and go on stage to have the introduction take place. And then on the Alabama-Tennessee game in basketball, the one where game day was there and Tennessee won, and it was what ultimately won them the SEC title. I had visited with Reese Davis earlier that day when game day was there, and then Reese had stuck around. And as I'm heading to my spot to do the play-by-play, I see Reese and Coach DeBoer talking, and just went up and said hello. And we talked for about a minute and a half, and I handed him my business card again. I said, Coach, I know I gave you this a few weeks ago, but there's no way you've still got it. You probably won't need it, but if you do, here's my number. You can get me anytime, and I'll do whatever I can. Thank me. I didn't think anything about it. Next morning, I'm sitting in church, and I feel the vibration. I got a text message on my phone. Look, hey, Chris, great to see you yesterday. Thanks for the card. Hope to see you at spring practice soon. Roll Tide, Kalen DeBoer. Closed it, and I thought, well, that's one more that I got in 17 years from the previous coach, which is not a shot at Coach Saban at all. This coach didn't start texting until recently. And Coach Saban was wonderful to me. When I had my health struggles, he and Miss Terry were in contact with my family, and he reached out. I mean, he's great. So please don't misunderstand. That wasn't a shot. It's just a reality that it's a new day. It's different. And different is not always better. Different's not always bad. Kalen DeBoer's record and resume speaks for itself. And we're very fortunate to have him at Alabama. And he's made a great impression with people so far. We know from a professional standpoint, it's about winning and losing. It's about winning and not losing at Alabama. But I think the interaction is going to be great, and I'm very excited about the chance. The way it's set up, I'm probably not going to see an Alabama practice until A-Day, which is next weekend. But I'm okay with that, and I think he is too. He was at a number of basketball games, and that was terrific to see as well.
You spoke about it a little bit, like that Bama Standard's a real thing in Tuscaloosa. So I'm excited to see Kalen DeBoer and that team get after it this fall. And Chris, you're as dialed in as there is when it comes to just Alabama sports, period, and the Alabama fan base. Compare the feeling with Kalen DeBoer now taking over at the helm, kind of the buzz right now when it comes to Alabama football from a fan base level in your mind.
I think I am by no means do I think Alabama fans had become complacent, but Nick Saban was historically great. And 2 years ago, the one I was talking about where I filled in for Eli doing the play-by-play, that was a team that played in the Sugar Bowl, beat Kansas State, won 11 games, I think. And Bama fans were, Bryce Young and Will and phenomenal group, but lost to LSU and had lost earlier in the year a game as well, so didn't get to play for a national championship. But 11 wins and a Sugar Bowl victory. And Bama fans are like, well, we'll be better next year. That's amazing. There are schools that build statues for 11 win seasons and a Sugar Bowl victory. And for Alabama, it was a rebuilding year in their minds. I'm so thankful Coach Saban got to go out with a championship. It wasn't the national title, but it was indeed an SEC championship. It was an historic, dramatic win over Auburn in the last Iron Bowl that he coached. And it was a berth in the Rose Bowl that was a minute and a half away from being a Bama victory that would have put him in the Natty for his last game. But so grateful that era ended in that manner. But now here we are with a chance to turn the page. And there is excitement because I think there is a feeling and a reminder. The nation looks at it as, well, you've lost Nick Saban, so you've lost Alabama. We go, wait a minute. It's either him or Coach Bryant that were the best ever. But those aren't the only ones that have won national championships before. In fact, I love, as an Alabama fan, I love to say and remind people that, I know they're not what they used to be, but 10-win seasons are still rare for a ton of programs. And Alabama has had this amazing run where every single coach since Bear Bryant came back home, Mama called and he wound up back in Tuscaloosa and had the historic run. But every coach after that, they may not have won a title, but every coach has had at least one 10-win season. Every single one. That's amazing. Dennis Franchioni's 2 years, got a 10-win season. Mike Shula struggled at the end and inherited the mess of probation where he had the really rough year, I think 4 wins, but he had a 10-win season in that mix as well. Mike DeBoer's a 10-win season. Bill Curry, everybody, Ray Perkins, they all did. And Gene Stallings had a national title. So even when we are below our standard has still been, or the accomplishments have still exceeded what a lot of other programs have. So Nick Saban brought the modern era of dominance for Alabama back. And again, I'll leave the debate for others as to who was better between he and Bear Bryant. But Coach Bryant's run in its time was unprecedented. Certainly what Coach Saban has done falls into the same category. But Alabama's not, folding up everything and putting it in the Bryant Museum and say, well, it was fun. The intent is to go back and win a national championship again this season and contend for it year after year. And things are set up for Kalen DeBoer to have a very good opportunity to compete at the highest level. That's why he took the job. I mean, he left literally a program where he was playing for the national title to take over Alabama. And are they paying him a lot of money? Obviously. But it's the ability and the resources to do it year in and year out is the reason that he left a great situation to come to a legendary situation.
Yeah, to your point, Chris, Nick Saban did not leave the cupboard bare from a talent
No.
perspective for Kalen DeBoer that first year in Tuscaloosa. Last question for you. Are you
Sure.
able to take all of this in from getting the new role with football, this Final Four run? Oh, by the way, you got a new head coach that gets hired prior to that. Like, are you able to really sit down and let all of this sink in right now?
I'm afraid not to make any loud noises because I'm afraid I'll wake up. It feels like a dream sometimes. Um, I understand that this feeling, this excitement, this joy that comes with being on a winning high, so to speak, doesn't last. Memories can, but the joy, the experience doesn't doesn't always stay there. So I am trying to soak it all up. I am trying to enjoy this to the fullest. I've got a job to do, and I'm about to pour into the notes and get locked in and get ready to call this game to the best of my ability on Saturday. But I am enjoying it. Uh, some things that I've experienced and done, at this time in my career, I've met and known just about everybody, and just fortunate that that's worked out because of my connection with Alabama. But Ernie Johnson invited me to dinner last night, and I'd never met Ernie. I'd read his book, watched his dad growing up as a kid in the South, watching Braves games on TBS, and so much respect for Ernie and the man that he is. Broadcast aside, and his broadcasts are obviously fantastic, but just the man that he is. So much respect for him, and it's gone through the roof after getting to spend a couple hours talking to him last night. So all sorts of things that just make this unbelievably special, an unreal time in my life. And yeah, I'm trying to soak it all up.
The voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide calling the Final Four tomorrow. We cannot wait to hear you on the call. We really appreciate you making time in the middle of Final Four preparation. Can't wait to watch you tomorrow.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.